Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Disc Golf Management. I am Bobby Cool Daddy Slick Breeze, and we're bringing it back, a conversation with. As I have conversations with people that work in disc golf, I thought you guys would find some value out of this. So this one goes back to November 2021. I'd seen an article about a new course being open on the college ground in Georgia. And it had mentioned that a new disc golf club was opening and that it was open for students to join. And I thought, wow, it's awesome that a college is getting behind disc golf. And so I made a post on the Disc Golf Answer Man Facebook page and said, does anybody live in this area, know what's going on here? And someone said, hey, the guy in that picture is Wes Johnson, and they've actually asked him to start a disc golf program where he can be a coach for disc golf. And I thought, whoa, that's interesting. I want to learn more about it. So I reached out to Wes a few days later, and he said, hey, it's really in the early stages of the program. A lot of it hasn't really happened. What if we circle back around and do this whenever things have really got going? Well, I did that, and here we are. Quite a few months later, I reached out to him, and he said, yes, things are going great. So I said, hey, let's get you on the show. Let's get you talking about being a coach for disc golf and how that all came about and how all that works. But before we jump into that, I want to give a big shout out to Door Disc for supporting the show. Make sure you check out the Disc Golf Answer Man discs that are out there. The official stamped DGAM. You can go to doordisc.com and then look for the Disc Golf Answer Man section, and he has a few discs there left for you guys to purchase. Also, a big shout out to our Patreon listeners. Thank you so much for supporting the show. You help me pay some of the little bills that go on with producing this show, so I appreciate that so much. All right, guys, here's the interview with Wes Johnson. All right, so how are you doing today, Wes?
I'm doing fantastic. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations on hitting your 1,000 subscriber mark.
Thank you.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Thank you very much. Although I went in there to turn on all the features from it, and then it said, no, you have to have so many watch hours. I was like, oh, great, another thing. So it might be a little bit longer until we do that. So, but I am going to put this video out on YouTube for people, so they'll be able to see that. Hopefully that'll kick up our watch hours, because I'm sure people will be excited about learning about all this stuff. So like I said in the intro, I had posted something on Facebook, and someone had said, hey, Wes Johnson is big into what's going on at this college as far as disc golf. And then they said that he had started a disc golf team. And I was like, man, I want to find out what's going on with this disc golf coaching. So kind of tell us, though, in your words, exactly how this all came about.
It came about due to COVID, actually. And I'm sure a lot of people, probably a lot of your subscribers, kind of found disc golf over the last couple of years due to not being able to participate in other activities indoors. And that's really what led to the creation of the disc golf course on our campus. I'm friends with the intramural director here on the Armstrong campus. And due to COVID, they had to cancel a lot of their intramural sports. So they were looking to find a COVID-friendly activity that they could get students interested in. And the two things that they were exploring the most were esports and disc golf. And we've got plenty of open acreage here on the campus, but it kind of took some persuading to get the higher ups to agree to let us to use it. But once we kind of mapped out our ideas and presented them, it actually came out they were pretty receptive to the idea of creating a space for students to go out and, be recreational and safe. And yeah.
Nice. So tell us a little bit more about how things kind of evolved into what they are right now.
So initially, I met with Sean, the director, and he proposed the idea of getting a disc golf course on our campus. And he showed me the initial space that he was looking at. It was actually wide open. Really, the only obstacle would be a small pond. And he asked me to help design a course to go around that. And so I said, of course, we'll try to do the best with what we've got without disturbing the land as much as possible because we were trying to make it very low impact on the university to make it easier for them to kind of give us the go ahead. And so I went out with him a couple times. We mapped out a fairly easy, like kind of beginner course style 9 hole, mostly wide open because that's what we were able to work with at the time. And eventually we showed that to his boss, and his boss actually really wanted to swing for the fences with this project. And he was like, "Oh, I want a full 18-hole course. I want this to be something we could host national tournaments at." And we had to kind of be like, "Okay, well, let's reel it back a little bit. I mean, that's great. It's really good to have that kind of support, but that's going to cost a lot of money, and that's going to require a lot more space."
Yeah.
And so eventually we brought in Henry Hamilton. He goes by H2. He works with Disc Golf Park, and Disc Golf Park is owned by Discmania, and it is a company entirely centered around designing disc golf courses and implementing them. And he came out, he took a look at the place we were initially looking at. He's like, this isn't going to be a great disc golf course. Because I mean, and I agree with him. It really, like, what the area we were looking at was, it was just all wide open spike hyzers essentially for anyone who's been playing for more than a year. And thankfully, once they kind of were able to have some more discussions with the higher ups, an entirely different part of the campus was explored that is some wooded areas around some intramural fields that haven't been utilized for anything. And thankfully, it was agreed upon that we were able to use that location. And Henry went through, he mapped out the course, he brought in his own guys to clear it with heavy machinery. And they did a phenomenal job really opening up the fairways, but also leaving trees in strategic locations. And yeah, he Disc Golf Park was fantastic about the whole thing because they handled literally everything. They designed it, they cleared it, they built the tee pads, they designed the signs, they installed the baskets, like literally everything.
Nice. Did it, who? Okay, so you, now that you've gotten the course coming in, and that being built, when does the whole thing of you becoming a disc golf coach kind of kicks in?
Sean actually, he asked me if I'd be interested in doing that just before the course opened because he received some interest from students about forming a disc golf course, specifically Matthew Mahoney, who is the club president. Um, he approached the rec department about creating a disc golf club since he heard that the course was being installed. And Sean reached out to me. He said, "Hey, I don't know if this is something you're interested in. It's okay if you say no, but we have some interest in forming a disc golf club, and you're arguably the most knowledgeable person on campus when it comes to this. Would you be willing to do this?" And I said, "Of course. I'm all about helping out newer players, and you know, it's also small perks for me being the coach. If whenever we go to tournaments, I get to go too, and so I might not be able to play in the tournament, but I'm able to practice with the students, get to go see some new courses, and it's free travel and room and board and all that. So as pretty much as soon as he asked, I was like, yeah, of course.
I would imagine, yeah. So how did it? But okay, so how did it? Did you get met with any feedback or negative feedback or anything about implementing this program?
Not that I've heard. Actually, it's been really positive in the area, and I think the way that they went about it was the correct way. Like, we didn't step on anyone's toes in order to get the course installed. They've made sure to have a very open line of communication with the maintenance crew about what they were doing and any expectations as far as maintaining the course and trash and all of that. So really, I think it's been widely accepted as a very positive move for the university.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned before we start recording something about the National Collegiate of Disc Golf. Tell me how that whole process went to get that all legitimized.
Yeah. So when it comes to that, it's actually mostly on the players themselves to like run the club. Matthew was the one that had to reach out to the Collegiate Disc Golf Association to get the team page created and to get the memberships for the other students, which is kind of cool. With that membership, you get a free PDGA membership once you become a member of the Collegiate Disc Golf Association. So that's a nice little perk for the students, and I believe it's a discounted rate too. Um, but yeah, he was the one that signed up for the club, and officially we are the Georgia Southern Armstrong disc golf team. There was a Georgia Southern disc golf team previous in the past years, but they were located on the Statesboro campus in Statesboro, Georgia. A little context there: the Statesboro campus and Armstrong campus and Liberty campus were all combined into one university from two separate universities back in 2018.
Okay.
So officially, we are the Armstrong campus team. There's currently no Statesboro campus team, but that's not to say that anyone who lives and goes to school in Statesboro is not allowed to join our team. But it'd be harder for them to participate in practice every week.
Gotcha. Okay, so the club, the team members actually have to kind of run the club as far as the collegiate part of stuff. So you have no involvement in that part as their coach?
Technically, no. Essentially, when it comes to that, I'm like an advisor, where I've been playing disc golf for 7 years, and so I'm I have a lot of experience playing tournaments and signing up for tournaments and, planning stuff out in that regard, where most of the guys on the team haven't been playing for very long and don't necessarily have that experience. So I've been helping them out as far as signing up for tournaments and figure out what to play and all that stuff. But basically, I tell Matt, what I think or what needs to be done, and then he does that on their end.
Now, is that a hard process for him to do?
No, not really. It's essentially everything's done on Disc Golf Scene, similar to a regular tournament. A lot of it's just the administrative stuff as far as making sure the people who are playing do have memberships and all of that.
Awesome. Okay, so you've got all that started, you got that going. Now, how did you go about once you decided that you were going to be, yes, I'm all in, I'm going to do this, be a disc golf coach. What was your next steps as far as, creating some sort of curriculum or plan? What went into that process?
A lot of that, I'm not a huge planner, but thankfully over the years, I've amassed a decent amount of knowledge when it comes to disc golf form work, field work, just my experiences from playing on the course. And I've also done a lot of clinics. I had a clinic with Dave Feldberg and Scott Zimmerman. I've done a clinic with Scott Stokely, just a bunch of like legendary guys. And I've drawn on that to kind of build my lessons for my students, and whether it be helping them improve their approach game or teaching them how to throw every kind of shot. That was a really fun day. In fact, I think we need to revisit that soon. Because, a lot of people never tried throwing a roller before or a tomahawk or a grenade. And so to show them how to do it and then watch them do it for the first time and succeed is a really special thing.
Yeah.
And really like the initial practices were kind of just, feeling things out, getting an idea of everyone's individual skill levels, and then kind of tailoring future practices based off of that.
Now, did you have it to where, like, I guess I'm imagining, like, you would say, okay, for 2 weeks or whatever, we're going to work on drives, and then for another, we're going to work on putting, or we're going to work on, how did you have any sort of system of breaking down what particular parts of the game of disc golf you were going to teach?
Um, Not necessarily that rigid.
Okay.
We do 2 practices a week on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That way, in case one person's not able to make one practice, they can hopefully make the second one. And then for those who are able to make both, that's just extra practice time for them. And just kind of week by week, I would stick to the same practice both days. That way, nobody would miss anything if they missed one practice, and if they made both, again, they get to practice it both times. But I tried to keep it varied from week to week so that it didn't really get stale.
Okay.
But the idea behind the practices kind of stays the same, even if we kind of change the way that we do it. Like I've had them do approach work out in a wide open field, and we focused mostly on distances. So I'd have them approach from 50 feet, 100 feet, 150. And then a couple weeks later, we did the same approach work, but in the woods. So now you've got these other variables, and I'd be like, we know these distances already, but now we got to start shaping our shots. And so that's kind of the process I've followed.
Was there anything that, or I think you mentioned, so the students had already been playing disc golf, but maybe just not that long. Were any of them like brand new to disc golf?
Yeah, well, one of our players had been playing for maybe 3 months
Okay.
at the time. So he was really fresh. Most of the guys had been playing for about a year,
Okay.
and had started, because of COVID,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Give me a couple of like maybe bad habits or bad form things that you had to like really fix.
It's actually funny. One day we had 4 guys out in the field, and we were doing form work, and I realized that all 4 of them had something completely differently wrong in their
really?
throw. Yeah. One of our guys, he would reach high, pull down, and get an air bounce on all of his shots.
Yeah.
And he was struggling to throw hyzers. We've got one of our guys has a problem with rounding. Another one, he almost like no matter what he did, as soon as he got to the power pocket, he'd lean back and get out of the way of the disc, and he'd end up yanking the disc way off over to the right.
Oh wow.
And it's been really interesting trying to figure out what to say or have them practice for each individual person to fix all their little nuances, because you can hammer in proper form over and over and over again until you run out of breath, but sometimes you really need to address those really specific things with each person.
So okay, so they are, the curriculum is part of their college, so they get credit for this too as well?
No.
No,
This is purely an intramural sport.
Okay. I guess I didn't understand that. But so they're out there. But, do any of them have like aspirations of like going pro, or is this just something that they just have enjoyed doing? Or
I think for most of them, it's mostly just they're competitive, but I don't think any of them are necessarily expecting to go professional anytime soon.
yeah, is it? I guess what I'm getting at is like I can imagine if I was doing something for the pure enjoyment of it and going practicing it, but then if I'm going out to doing something that I have to practice, if it's a different mindset, do they get? I'm imagining kids going to school and they're like having to learn about math, having to learn about this or that. Even though they may enjoy it, it's like you have to go through these particular processes to learn to get better. I didn't know if any of the students give you any pushback or anything on it.
No, I haven't experienced anyone feeling like they needed to be there.
Yeah.
At least I haven't picked up on that, if that has been an issue. I'm not a very strict coach in that I'm not demanding that they come to practice every day. I'm very much like, hey, I'm here to help you get better. If you want to come to practice, then come out and I'll try to, give you all the information that I know. But if that's not something that you're into, that's fine. Um, but when it comes to actual competition, which the club wants to do, they want to go and play against other universities. Sometimes it comes down to, all right, we've got 5 people who want to go, but um, disc golf, the collegiate disc golf is 4-person doubles typically. And when it comes to choosing who gets to go, it might come down to, okay, who has attended the most practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so a student might get preference to play that tournament in regards to that, because it's like, this person has shown up and shown the drive and put in the effort. And I feel like they should be given that chance to go out there and compete,
Yeah.
as opposed to somebody who, maybe is only part of the club to compete at tournaments, but hasn't been coming to practice.
Yeah, I agree with that. So kind of walk us through, what does a practice day look like?
We start at 4 p.m. because that's when I get off work. I head out to the course and meet the guys up. We all make sure to do stretches. That's something I've been trying to emphasize. I know a lot of disc golfers don't like to stretch before they go out and throw, and I feel like that's an easy way to get injured. So that's been something I've been trying to instill with them, is every time you go out and throw, please do some stretches, because I don't want anyone to get hurt. And then typically I'll have an idea for what we want to do in practice, but sometimes if only a couple people have shown up, I'll give them the option saying, hey, this is what I was planning to do today, guys. Does that sound like fun? Does that sound like something you want to work on? Or do you want to do like form work today? Because everybody wants to throw further.
Right.
So everybody wants to do form work. Typically they're pretty open to doing the exercise that I have planned for them, but sometimes they're just like, I've been wanting to try to figure this out. And so we'll be like, all right, well, I'll scrap what I had planned today. Let's work on that. But if they're amenable to doing the exercise I want to do, we'll typically work on that for about an hour. And then once that's up, we'll go out and play 9 holes on the course together as kind of like a bonding thing. But also, everybody likes to play.
Sure.
Practice is great, but actually hitting chains is better.
Right. I mean, that's what you're practicing for, is to go out and play. So you want to
Right.
go play for sure. That's
and
cool.
I'll give them a hard time during the round afterwards if they're in a situation that we just practiced. I'm like, you better do well with this. We just worked on this.
That's awesome. So I saw a post on your Facebook page about them recently participating in their first tournament in Cookeville, Tennessee.
Yes,
have
sir.
I got that right? Okay. How did that go? How did that tournament go for them for their first tournament?
Yeah, that was the Golden Eagle Collegiate Qualifier. It was, I think, the last potential tournament we could even play for the season to qualify for the national championship, which we weren't planning on participating in the national championship due to the club being only like 2 months old at that point. But we definitely did want to get the guys out there to compete in at least one tournament before the season was over. And I like to think that they all had a great time. It was a pretty long drive to get out there, but thankfully the university supplied us with a van, a 15-person van to take the guys out there. They paid for the hotel for us to stay in.
Wow.
They paid for the fees to sign up for the tournament. So it was literally like, you guys pay for your own food, but we cover everything else. Go out there, have fun. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make it out there early enough to do a practice, like a real proper practice round. But we were able to get up early the day of the tournament, get out there and warm up and see some of the holes. And it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of wind and a lot of elevation, which we don't have much of in Savannah. So that was definitely kind of an eye-opening thing for some of the guys who've only ever played in hot, sticky weather with flat ground.
Wow. How well did they do? Did they qualify?
Uh, we came in last,
Okay.
but that again, it wasn't about going out there and winning. It was going
Sure.
out and just experiencing, for a lot of them, their first tournament.
Yeah. Now, have they played any
And
tournaments since?
no, not as a club. Some of the individual guys have
Okay.
played some sanctioned tournaments since then, which has been great because I've actually gotten to see them out during the tournament round and be like, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And give them some encouragement. Um, but I believe the collegiate season starts later in the year.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But once that starts up, hopefully we'll be able to get out there and participate in some more tournaments.
Gotcha. So as you're out there coaching people and seeing things they need to change in their form and giving them suggestions and putting together this curriculum, how has it changed your way of playing?
It's made me think a lot more
Yeah.
about my own form and shot selection because I don't want to be giving them, wrong advice. So it kind of lights the fire in me to make sure that what I'm telling them is the most accurate information. And so like I'm naturally kind of a perpetual student. I'm always watching disc golf form reviews. Danny Lindell has been huge for my own personal form. I'm a member of his Discord, and I put form checks up there all the time. Constantly watching YouTube videos and professional tournaments and just everything like that. And yeah, I mean, it's been kind of more rewarding than I expected to see the changes that I've seen in my students. Every now and then I'll get a message like, "Hey man, I shot even today, and my best score at Tom Triplet was +6 up until then. Like, thank you so much." And I'm like, that's like that fills me with so much joy,
I bet.
and just to know somebody else is having that fun and feeling that success. Really, like, that's a huge reward for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about how someone, if they wanted to do this in their area, what advice would you give them?
Um, let's see. I would say be prepared to kind of not have your hand held when it comes to figuring stuff out. The Collegiate Disc Golf Association, their website's a little hard to navigate, especially if you're not super familiar with disc golf to begin with. Um, but definitely also know that scheduling is hard when it comes to students and adult schedules. Anybody who's ever played Dungeons and Dragons knows that it's almost impossible to coordinate a weekly session of adults to do anything together. So that's probably been the hardest issue, is just getting a schedule that everyone is able to participate with. And I'd say make as many connections as you can, because I don't know if any of this would have happened if I didn't know the intramural director, before all this. Thankfully, my wife works in the campus recreation department here, and that's how I knew them. But I don't know. He was an ultimate frisbee guy in a past life, and I think he was vaguely aware of disc golf prior to meeting me, but ever since he's met me, he's definitely learned a lot more because I don't shut up about it. But yeah, just knowing people and talking to them and reaching out is probably like the biggest thing.
Very cool. Okay, so for the listeners who always ask us questions and always wanting to get better at disc golf, and you being someone who's now coaching people and training people and really getting into how to play disc golf better, give us at least three lessons or three pieces of advice that you would give to our listeners to improve their disc golf game.
Slow down. That's my biggest thing is
Yeah?
slow down.
Now, why is that?
Because the faster you go, there's a lot of very small moving parts in a disc golf throw. And the faster you go, the harder it is for all those things to sync up. And I notice personally, whenever I'm not playing well, it's typically because I'm rushing and I'm not letting my body have time or my brain have time to sync everything up. And as soon as I kind of tell myself, slow down, just like go smooth, everything seems to link up a lot better. And the biggest thing I've noticed with beginners is that they try to really just run through the shot, and that it pretty much never ends up well. And as soon as I tell them like to really slow their pacing down, it seems to help fix a lot of issues. And then my second thing would be to videotape yourself whenever you're out doing field work. I guess that would also be do field work. If you want to get better, do field work, and then make sure you video yourself when you do, because there's a concept that I've kind of recently heard about and I agree with is called feel versus real, where you can tell somebody to do something and they think that they are doing it, but in reality they aren't. If you tell like my student who tends to kind of yank his shots over at the very end, I was trying to tell him like you need to lean forward a bit more at the waist to help yourself maintain that position. And he would, he'd be leaned over, yank back. And he'd, look at me and like, oh, that was better. I'm like, it was better, but like he still stood up at the end. So once I did some video of him doing that, he had kind of a better idea of like what he was doing. And I was like, if you want to practice this, do some video work, watch yourself. If you're still doing it, try to work more and just keep videoing it. And it really helps to see yourself doing the thing wrong, because we're visual learners.
Yeah.
For most people. And so you might think you're doing something correctly, and when you go back and watch it, you're not.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot. And then the third thing, I know it's cliche, but have fun. A lot of people really get too hung up on form work, and they end up stressing themselves out, and it ends up becoming something that they feel like they need to do. And it can really kind of sour your mood towards disc golf if you aren't necessarily seeing the progression that you would like to see out of yourself. I know I got kind of into that funk the first couple of years that I was playing, because I'd go out and throw in the field for 3 hours and not feel like I learned anything. And it can really kind of like make you like, well, am I ever going to get better? And you start doubting yourself. But, and I would play badly at league, and I would get really upset with myself and not end up having any fun. And at that point, it's like, well, why am I even doing this? And I kind of had to take a step back and be like, look, man, like you're throwing Frisbees out in the woods with your friends. Like, this is supposed to be enjoyable. And once you kind of learn to let go of the bad things that happen during the round, you're going to end up playing better anyways.
Gotcha. Awesome. Good deal. All right. So let's skip to the part, because sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Okay. So we, on the interviews that I do interviews with people, I like to do what's called the 5 questions, because I want to get to know you, just to get to know you a little bit more. As I was doing some prepping for this particular interview, I went through your Facebook page and stuff to kind of learn about what's going on. And I noticed a lot of people are just like, they love what you do for the sport. They love what you do for the disc golf community in your area. And so it's like, I want to get to know this guy a little bit more. So I have my 5 questions, and I'm sure some of my devout listeners probably remember what they are, but we'll go ahead and jump right into them if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. All right. All right. So number 1, what are you learning right now? And that could be anything. It doesn't have to be involved with disc golf at all.
All right. Well, we talked about this prior to the interview, but I'm a graphic designer here at Georgia Southern University. And for the longest time, I've been mostly a print designer, magazines, brochures, things that at the end of the day are going to be printed and you can hold in your hand. And part of that stems from the fact that I did my internship during college at a print shop. And so I've always had a love for that and have kind of shied away from web design and animation and things like that. But, as we move forward into the 21st century, less and less things are being printed nowadays, and you kind of need to stay with modern trends. So I've actually been learning how to do animations, mostly for like web banners and graphics like that. And it's actually been a lot of fun kind of learning a new process because, once you do something enough times, it starts to become muscle memory and you kind of stop thinking. And that's not great doing creative work when you're not thinking anymore.
Yeah.
So to actively be like honing my skills again in a different sort of medium has been really interesting.
That's awesome. Okay. How has failure shaped your life?
I'd say it's made me a very patient person. My wife likes to say that I'm the most patient person she's ever met.
Hmm.
And I owe that a lot to disc golf because I've had a lot of failure. Um, I've had a lot of bad rounds. I've had a lot of really unlucky things happen. And I used to get really angry about it. And that would just make things so much worse. And eventually I figured out a way to just kind of let the bad things that happen slide off my back. And that's kind of led to me being able to deal with things in my regular life in a more positive way, just kind of just taking a breath and just being like, all right, we can deal with this, like we'll get through this. We always do.
Number 3, question 3, what do you know, or no, who do you know that I should know?
You should know Valerie Williams.
Oh, yeah.
She is the president of the Savannah Disc Golf Association, and she is the owner of Dynamic Discs Savannah and the owner of Wicked Aces Disc Golf. She is an amazing person. She has an incredible drive, and she is probably one of the most well-known people in the Savannah area, at least within the disc golf world. I cannot say enough good things about Val.
Excellent. I've actually met her before. I believe at a Glassbone Open event. So yeah, she's
Yeah,
a very nice person. So, okay. So, what have you read, or what do you listen to that I should listen to or read? And it could be a podcast or a book.
It's a book, actually. I was recommended this book. I think right after my first MPO win last year. My buddy reached out to me and he said, "Hey man, congratulations. And I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but like when you're on, you're on. And when you're off, you are terrible." And you need to figure out why that is. So he recommended to me The Inner Game of Tennis by Tim Galloway. And despite its name, it's not necessarily just strictly about tennis. The book itself kind of teaches you how to think about sports and competing in a completely different way. And I was a little skeptical at first, but when I started looking into it, there's been a lot of like glowing reviews from top athletes, like Tom Brady. Notoriously like reread that book over and over again when the Patriots were going on their Super Bowl runs, and Pete Carroll of the Seahawks, he had his whole team read it. And yeah, after reading through, I can definitely see why a lot of people highly recommend that book, because it really teaches you to look at yourself and your competing in a completely different mindset.
Really? Wow, that's interesting. Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that book.
Definitely check it out.
What have you done that I should do?
Mm, it's a good question. Travel abroad if
Okay.
you get a chance.
Okay.
I've been to Thailand, Italy, and I've been to Japan 3 times. And I feel like if you have the ability to go out and experience another culture, that you should do it. So many people never even leave their own hometown, but going out and experiencing the world and other cultures will really open your eyes to, you know, we're all one big human race, and despite all our differences, we're all very similar at the same time. So that's probably my number one recommendation.
Nice. Now, were these all vacations or for business?
They were all vacation. I
Okay.
went to Italy during high school because I was in the Latin club.
Nice.
But everything else has been to me and my group of friends from Savannah College of Art and Design. We made our every 2 years we would go on a trip to Japan together, and it was one to just go and visit Japan, which is really cool on its
Yeah.
own. But it's also like the only time we ever get to see all of each other in one place. So it was more about just getting to spend 2 weeks with friends and not have to worry about work or anything else like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. All right, Wes. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing everything about this disc golf coaching. I think it's fantastic, and I hope it goes. I hope they do it for as long as you're able to do it, because it sounds like it's a really cool deal. And of course, introducing new students to disc golf, I think, is an awesome thing. So yeah, again, I appreciate you getting on here and sharing your story with us and let us learn a little bit more about it. And I wish you the best of luck going forward with the program.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to be on here and to meet you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again to Wes Johnson for being on the show. I appreciate all you guys listening and watching on YouTube and listening on all the podcast apps. I appreciate it. Again, thank you to our Patreon supporters. Appreciate all your support. Thank you to DoorDisc.com for their support as well. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.